Hi, and thanks for joining. We're going to give everyone one more minute to get signed on, so we'll begin in just a moment. All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the 7th installment of Reimagine Learning's Voices from the Field. The Voices from the Field series features monthly sessions facilitated by field leaders who share insights on how to create teaching and learning environments that unleash creativity and potential in all students, and them to realize academic and life success. The session will be facilitated by John Bell, who will listen to a conversation about ethics in our classrooms and schools. During the session, John will explore what our classrooms and schools would look like if students and staff practiced 5 ethical guidelines for creating caring and healthy relationships, which help create community, heal trauma, and build character. John has over 40 years of experience in the youth development field as a teacher, counselor, community organizer, leadership trainer, director, and father. He's taught elementary, middle, high school, and college levels, and is a founding staff member of 3 youth development organizations: Youth Action Program, Children of War, and Youth Build. Until his recent retirement, John was the Vice President for Leadership Development at Youth Build USA. John will be leading an interactive session. He'll be asking questions of the audience throughout and then allow time for Q&A at the end as well. So to participate, use the little icon that's in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen that looks like a hand, and that'll allow you to raise your hand, and I can unmute you so you can hop into the conversation or ask a question. We also have a Q&A box that you can type into if you prefer at any point throughout the session, and I will follow up those questions and comments during the Q&A session as well. So feel free to put in any of those ways. So thank you, John Bell, so much for joining us. We're really excited for this session, and feel free to kick it off.
Buddy, very happy to be here with you today. Thanks for coming. Leno Johnson, who some of you may know, he works at New Prophet, Youth Build graduate and someone who I have supported and admired for a long time. And he reached out to me and said, how about doing something for New Prophet? And I was delighted to pick it up. So today, I know some of you are from all kinds of policy organizations, advocacy organizations, some direct teaching organizations. I hope this is of use to you today. I always like to make it useful. A picture of a bell here. I'd like to start this with. This is an image of a bell that's like mine that I have right here. It sounds like this. I hope it's too distorted. I staff training of teachers in this bell. This is a bell that I'm very familiar with. I meditate each morning. I also use it when I travel and do workshops and trainings. It's used as a talking stick. People pour this into it. So I've spent a lot of time with the bell. And it shows it's different under different conditions, like this. That's different. So you can see, so if I don't know whether you can see this on the picture, but if I use this part of the inviter, we don't say striker, but the inviter, because we're inviting this relationship, and I use this edge here, it's like this. Different from that. I'm not sure you can pick it up because sometimes the electronic distorts it. So we're talking about this bell. Well, since I learned that this bell is suitable under certain conditions, It's like with our students and sometimes our staff, we are trying to create conditions for them their best, to be themselves, their best learners, best community members. And so to talk with you today about some of the conditions, and I'm going to put it in the form of ethics. First, I'd like to do an appreciation of you all. You know, when I taught in Harlem in 6th grade, the Board of Education handed me a K-12 curriculum for studies of everything they'd learned kindergarten through 12th grade, beautifully constructed, coherent, what they every module, every month after month, was that it had very little to do with the students. Came in from, this is in Harlem, they came in from some hard nights, they come in hungry, they came in from on the block, violence in the neighborhood. They were distracted by all kinds of things and were not really available to learn. The emotional issues were so great. They were called troublemakers and no goods, and maybe they had a label like learning disabled. And could actually succeed in the school system and especially go through these curriculum. And I taught, when I was working in a suburban school district in the Boston area, rash of suicide among Asian American teenagers because they were failing from peers and from their family and culture to succeed in school. Now, these two stories is to say that even across the class spectrum, people come into our classrooms and schools hurting a lot. All educational setting, our young people are suffering. We saw this in Youth Build, who were young people who dropped out of school. So teachers in classrooms have an almost impossible situation to teach the subject matter, prepare students for high standardized tests, handle social emotional learning, and do this all at the high school within a 45-minute period. So my hat's off to you. So here, a picture of some Youth Build direct staff from around the country. And think of yourselves this way, either in your staff positions, your training positions, or your teaching positions. You got the eagerness is like at the beginning of the year, the beginning of the cycle, the beginning of the job, and enthusiastic, idealistic, ready to go for it, wanting to communicate your learning and help young people live. And of course, sometimes what you meet, at least these are most of them are from Youth Build. So forgive me, I don't have elementary and middle school images here. The actual picture from an orientation of Youth Build, come check Youth Build out, and you can see, you know, they have that I've been here, done that. What's in it for me? Another program, some poverty program. I'm gonna have to get my GED and a little change in my pocket and get out of here. And so this is daunting. And here is right that this happens to be a group of Youth Build graduate leaders who have gone through development through the Youth Build program, gotten their education, their GED or diploma, learned leader skills, build housing, and made themselves employable, and they operate mainstream society successfully. I can tell stories about each of these young people. It's amazing. This is what, you know, and our job is to get from here to here. Not all students are like this. I'm not generalizing a little bit here. So I have quite a job, and I'd like to play you this. A couple of years ago, I saw this Lily Garcia talk from a talk she gave to the Campus Future. She's president of the National Teachers Association. So it's just a tribute to what you all and your staffs do. Just do this for a minute.
I was sitting there playing, and the nice talkative man stand in the middle seat if I think someone is talkative. Oh my God, they're so talkative. And he's telling me where he's going and what he's doing and what his business is. And he says, so what do you do, darling? I said, well, I'm a teacher, and now I work with the National Education Association. And he stopped smiling. And I've heard about cheap people. I hear you need this, and then I hear you need that, and then I hear you need something else. To tell you the truth, darling, I'm getting tired. I'm a businessman. I want you to bottom line it for me. I want you to tell me right now, what is the one single thing that would solve problems in public schools? And I said, that's easy. What we really need, fewer people who think there's one single thing that would solve our problems in public schools. No. I wish I hadn't been so snotty to that guy, but it was fun. And here's the thing, he's not the enemy. Most people, their kids grown and gone, or they never had kids, they don't walk into a neighborhood public school. I'm an educator. It's up to me to educate in the middle as much as to educate a politician about what happened in a typical school. We serve kids a hot meal. We put Band-Aids on boo-boos. We our curriculum and instruction to meet the personal and individual needs of all of our students, blind and hearing impaired, physically challenged, gifted, and talented, the chronically retarded, and the medically annoying. We make sure that they've had their immunization, make sure they understand disease control, teaching streets, drugs, alcohol, tobacco. We do career counseling, pregnancy counseling, mental health counseling. We put them on the bus safely. We take them off the bus safely. We provide computer instruction, sex education. We stop bullying, teach them to say, I'm sorry, and mean it. We understanding of civil rights, the political process, challenge racism, social tolerance, and appreciation for our cultural and religious diversity. We teach the principles of free enterprise, how to be a good sport. We develop personal responsibility, practice bicycle safety for headlights. Provide bilingual education, teach metrics, how to be a wise consumer, exercise weight control, how to drive a car. We teach the impact of words, develop collaborative skills, how to tune a violin, how to use reason and evidence, project the future. We teach them to review environment, how to manage their money, how to access information, how to make wise choices, how to balance the checkbook. We teach loyalty to the ideals of a democracy. We build patriotism, good oral hygiene, and respect for the word dignity of every individual. We nurture curiosity, encourage a good question, build self-esteem, and then we teach reading, writing, and arithmetic.
I hope you enjoyed that. That's a tribute to you and all that you do. A deep gratitude to you. These are some images of the kinds of conditions that you and your colleagues and the teachers that we work with create. These are all from Youth Build programs. Back to Bell for a moment. What are the conditions that help us and our students thrive? I say us because any classroom, any school is a community, and we're part of that community, those who are staff. So taking care of ourselves, creating a community that is good for us is just as important as creating the conditions for young people to show up well. I focus the rest of our webinar on what I call ethics in the classroom, our schools. What will our classrooms look like if and staff alike? Practice. I'm going to 5. You have others, and we can talk about those during the Q&A. 5 ethical guidelines for creating healthy relationships. How might these environmental environments create community, heal, increase learning, and build character? Because it's really what we're about. Into passing on our love of learning to younger people. This is the 5 that I'm going to talk about here, and it's a different kind of approach. So, it's saying I will not hurt people, I won't steal from people, I'll be generous with my time, my energy. I will not speak ill of people, I'll try to create kindness, especially for the older middle school and high school on up. responsibility to talk about that, and consuming in a way that's healthy for the body and for other people around me. Every community, large or small, needs a set of guidelines to navigate human relations within our families, in our relations. You might use a different set than these 5, and that's fine. We can talk about that more. I've chosen these 5 because they apply so much to all of life, not school environments. And all these practices are not moral absolutes. They're not absolutely attainable. They're not being perfect. It's more like, think of them as the North Star. You know, we don't, when we use the North Star as a compass, we don't ever get to the North Star, but it helps us know our direction. It helps me to remind myself that I'm always practicing something. I'm always practicing something. So practicing, leading to wholesome results. With the conditions for the bell, where it has certain conditions under which it sounds most beautiful. 2 primary elements in the bell. One is I have to know the bell really well to get that sound. And each is different, of course, so we have to know each student. So is I that when I'm upset, the bell sounds different. I might have a jagged sound to it. Feeling sad might be too soft to get the attention. Feeling angry, you know, maybe too much oomph to it, and it kind of shocks people. So I am as much a part of this conditions as our students in this case. So I want to. So I'm a community of mindfulness practitioners. These 5 that I'm going to read them because they're kind of power-packed in a lot of ways. We'll look at the ones for young people on different slides, but just you can read along, or you can just close your eyes and listen. They kind of formal, but take a look. For life, this is my practice. I'm aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of life. I'm committed to cultivating compassion and learning to protect the lives of people, plants, and minerals. I'm to kill, not to let others kill, not to support any act of killing in the world, in my way of life. Seeing harmful actions arise from anger, fear, and intolerance, I will cultivate openness, not discrimination, and attachment to my own views, in order to transform violence, criticism, and dogmatism from the wider world. It is mouthful, I know. It starts with acknowledging the suffering caused by violence and the disrespect of life. Many of our students experience violence and disrespect. Small children. Our schools, of course, we must take care to create a safe, welcoming, and nurturing environment. The thing about the wording and the formation of this particular sentence is it's a guideline that states I'm determined to do no support for killing, even in my thoughts. That's pretty hard. No hate, no discrimination, no out from fear, anger, or greed. Cultivate positive qualities and actions that create a peaceful environment. If I'm peaceful, it's hard for me to create a peaceful environment for students. It might sound different for students. And you go through processes in school. So, for instance, taking care of each other. And you form this as a community, sticking up for each other, reaching each other, making it safe. No discriminating. When discrimination happens, talk about it. The use of restorative circles. Insects, catching insects and taking them aside, modeling that for the children and for the old ones. All the animals in and around the school. interconnection of life, how the trees, we breathe out carbon dioxide, the trees breathe it in, convert it, and breathe oxygen. So we're dependent on the trees, creating a reverence and an interconnection with all of life. The king had a nice quote, you may remember. He said something like, you know, in the morning and you take a shower and you're handed a spot by someone from the South Sea Islands and a towel made from cotton in Birmingham Mills in England, and then you go for breakfast and if you want coffee, someone from Kenya hands you the coffee, or maybe you want cocoa, someone from South America, you want tea from India, and so by the time you've left you're indebted to half of humankind. Kind of reverence for life and interconnection. Studying about discrimination, oppression, countering it as one of the ways of reverence for life. You know, you would make up, you know, these are not rocket science. You'll see that the ones for the classroom and school are ones that we've used a lot. But as a set, they make some sense to me. So one is generosity, or sometimes expressed as not stealing. This is practice. Aware of suffering caused by exploitation, social justice, stealing, and oppression. Generosity in my thinking, speaking, and acting. Not to steal, not to possess anything that should belong to others. And over time, energy, material resources, those who are in need, looking deeply to see that happiness, suffering of others are not separate from my own happiness and suffering. The true happiness is not possible without understanding and compassion. After wealth, power, and sensual pleasures can bring much suffering and despair. And this depends on my mental attitude and not my conditions. And I can happily, in this moment, simply by remembering what happened. I already have enough conditions to be happy. And I'm living in such a way to reduce the suffering of living beings on Earth in the process of global warming. Again, a mouthful, but this is my practice as an adult who's been practicing this kind of mindfulness for a long time. But with the up in the classroom, they get this too. Partly stealing, affecting other people's things, but then not stealing other people's credit or their success, helping people celebrate each other's success, boost people up, knowledge and skills with others. This is here of the youth-filled students doing cooperative learning. These kind of know about as good educational practices. Talking about if those who are wired to talk out and answer questions, that their way they can be generous and yield opportunities for other people is sometimes to step back so others can step up. Find to minimize a negative competition. Not all competition is destructive, but it is because it's unmindful. And stories sing about acts of courage and compassion, kindness. So many of them. So in speech, this is my practice again. Aware of the suffering caused by unmindful speech and the ability to listen to others. I'm committing loving speech and listening, or suffering, and promote reconciliation and peace myself, and people, ethnic and religious groups, and nations. No one can create happiness or suffering. I'm committed to speaking truthfully, using words that inspire confidence, joy, and hope. When acting in me, not to speak, I will find ways of calming myself in order to recognize and look deeply in anger. I know of here can be found my wrong perceptions, lack of understanding of the self and the other person. I was listening in a way that can help yourself and the other person to transform suffering and see out of difficult situations. And spread news that I do not know to be certain, words that can cause division or discord. I will narrate for understanding, love, joy, and gratitude, transform the anger, violence, and to lie deep in consciousness. This is a pretty packed statement, isn't it? Each sentence could be, we could talk for hours and hours about. But so much unkind speech around. When I was, for instance, I'm a really kind person, but when I was working with this particular practice of unkind speech, I realized there's sarcasm. I used to use sarcasm because especially around public events or public figures, seeing hypocrisy, I made fun of them. And I realized that I was actually contributing to making other distant myself, cause discord, feeding up people's bad feelings about those people. It's a thing because it's fun, and you can, be your gang of fellow critics to criticize whoever your favorite political target is at the moment, for instance. But it is part of our problem that we're really not able to speak respectfully to each other and kindly to each other, really stand and listen to each other's differences and point of view and accord without rancor and the issues of what we're finding in the political realm in our country here. With people, you can talk to some examples, just some examples. We refute gossip or spread rumors. How do you feel when they said that about you? When anger comes up, which it does, how to handle it, not to walk away, count to 10, come back tomorrow, talk about it. Have others or put others down. In you, we put a lot of emphasis on this. Philadelphia has a wonderful school of 220 charter school, and they have a culture of shout-outs. So it's with the staff who appreciate the young people when they first come into the program, and they give it first, and what do they try to like just soup me, not really, not feel, but then they like it, and they appreciate each other. Made a consistent practice. So every Friday they have an assembly where they have 10 shout-outs. Shout out to Mr. So-and-so who taught me this math equation. I never got it before. Some newspaper reporter will come in, and they're complimenting the newspaper reporter and the guests that come visit, and the guests are stunned that there's a whole different culture that can be tough. Talking and using words that cause division or build harmony. About the use of our words are very powerful. They can break a community, they can break a person, they can build a person up. So what do we want to do? What's the community we want to build it? Speech is such a ethical to think about in the classroom. I used something when I was teaching. I used to, different ways of getting young people. Appreciation wall chart where we'd say, okay, this week, what do we think about Jose? And people write them on the flip chart. We put it up high in the classroom, up for months. And sometimes Jose comes in, he's been down. His eyes will drift up to that thing, and he'll remember that once upon a time, people say good things about him. I had a game called Guess What? So I'm thinking something I really like about you. Yes. So you can see what happens. They say, well, you like the clothes I wear. And I say, yeah, I like you got good taste in clothes. That's not the one I'm thinking. They say, well, you like it that I always participate in class. I say, yeah, I like that. So they have 3 chances to appreciate themselves before you give them what is a fourth appreciation. And if they guess it on the first one or the second one, I do something quickly. Something else. So it's just a that begins to build culture and the atmosphere of kind speech. Okay, responsibility. Now, this is an important one, I think, to include in the old days because, people are inundated with messages about sex. Aware of my practice now, not for the young people, but suffering, the suffering caused by sexual misconduct. I'm cultivating responsibility and learning ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, couples, families, and society. Knowing that desire is not love, activity motivated by craving always harms myself as well as others. Determined not to engage in relations without true love and a deep love commitment made known to my family and friends. I will do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse, to prevent families from being broken by sexual misconduct. Body and mind are one. I'm committed to learning appropriate ways to take care of my sexual energy and cultivating loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness are the four basic elements of true love for my happiness and the greater happiness of others. Again, this is a pact. Some of us may have a lot of disagreements or resistance to some of these phrases and what asking. These are not absolutes. They're things for us to look at, to think about, to give your relation to how we want to live. What's our deepest aspirations? Our especially teenagers and adolescents, and on us too. We're awash in messages and urges around. There's so much confusion and falseness and advertising and music and the culture that glorifies. It's a solution or antidote for almost everything. Along with peer pressure and hormones, this is a minefield of potential suffering for young people. And really for us in our classrooms, in our schools, to think about this. I know it's sensitive territory. There's just feelings among the families and parents. To be very careful. So it's a challenge to learn how to be skillful in this area, but it's such an area that calls for our and this is back to that the Cabell. I need to be practicing these things. I can too. Otherwise, I don't have integrity when I'm talking to young people. This is for myself, translate into my ability to be more with young people. So again, examples that be in the classroom or the school. If I engage in sexual activity, you assume that. Only so with love and commitment. Talk about what that would mean. And you've built a wonderful curriculum on healthy relationships called Love Notes. They're role plays and discussions of the kinds of sexual relationships people wanted and why. On campuses today, when I interview college students, it's really amazing how casualness of it, rather as a sacred, a real relationship, just a one-night thing. For abuse and assessment, understanding what that is. I'm determined to use sex to cover my bad feelings of loneliness or worthlessness or whatever, to really think about with the young people. And this use safe sex and pregnancy prevention. Again, very sensitive areas. I'm not how to do it. These are just some examples of things it could be. The last here is my assumption, another key area. Now this I practice. Of the suffering caused by unmindful consumption. Each of these in my practice, the awareness of suffering caused by behavior. Good health, both physical and mental, for myself, my family, my community. By assessing mindful eating, drinking, and consuming. I'm determined or alcohol, drugs, or other products which contain toxins. Now this is interesting. As certain websites, electronic games, TV programs, films, magazines, books, and conversations. I look to the present moment to be into the refreshing, healing elements in me and around me. Not since sorrow drive me back into the past, or letting anxieties or craving pull to the present moment. I'm to cover up loneliness, anxiety, or other suffering by losing myself in consumption. I will come to the interconnectedness of all things and consume in a way that preserve peace, being in my body and consciousness, and collective body and consciousness of my society and the earth. You can see how one is, and how related is to the others. Gossip, which is unkind speech, we're consumed that. We're conditioned to eat or shop or use substances to our discomfort or our suffering. We're after 9/11, President Americans to go out. What's consuming is toxic and physical or mental health. It's not, but it's all of these things mentioned in this one. It's important to talk with ourselves and with our students and staffs about protecting our precious minds from the toxicity that's all around in substances, in conversations, in all of it, and to being invaded by the multitude of forces that are cause disharmony and disharmony and spread ill will. So examples, again, many ways to young people in schools and classrooms, but talking about mindful eating and drinking, consuming. There are a lot of mindfulness eating exercises that are available. You can Google the REM meditation or mindful eating and gets introduced. Talking about the bodies, if you will, the sacred temple of bodies, and how we don't want to pollute it or make it toxic or confuse it. Well, never mind. And they said, I try not to lose myself in consuming by shopping to feeling anxiety, fear, craving. This is something like the sex don't use when we are about ourselves. It's all part of the addictive nature of staying away from our bad feelings. So these 5, they're pretty power-packed. But you may have others. They inform a safe environment for young people to really grow, develop their character, question themselves, guide themselves in the tricky waters of our society. One share, 5 are obviously interconnected. That's why I drew them in this way. With this kind speech, we're also practicing reverence for life. Practicing reverence for life in, say, not eating mindful consumption. When it's mindful consumption, we're practicing towards, let's say, not eating meat. So we're generosity toward the lives of animals and reverence for life, for their and so on. I'd like to close by playing you a song that so the continuity and dependence of love life. And you as educators and people who work with educators are part of that continuity. What you do is a difference. This is a song by Sweet Honey and the Rock, who, for you who may not know, is an African-American female a cappella group with beautiful music. And it's called Chinese Proverb, which is attributed to. I'd just like you to enjoy this song. Thank you very much for your attention. I would love for you to share any ways you've worked with, teach you in the classroom, work with students on guidelines, what successes and maybe issues you've had with them. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, John. We really appreciate it. So to hear from folks, either questions or comments that you have that you want to share with John. If you go ahead and raise your hand by clicking the little icon that is shaped like a hand next to your name, I will be able to unmute you and then you can join into the conversation. So feel free to add a comment into the Q&A box as well.
And I prefer if people want to question live so we could hear your voice and introduce yourself. It's small enough group that we can do that.
John, just to kick it off, I have a question. I'm just curious about as you kind of built relationships with, students over the years, I'm curious if you've had conversations just with students that you've taught, maybe kind of years later and as they've gotten more into their adult lives, like and how these kind of 5 tenets that you've talked through have followed them just in terms of as they've developed as young adults as well.
Well, I spent most of my last 28 years in the youth build context, and where I've had most my contact with young people. And we've known, I know people who are now in their 50s. They started in 1978, 1980. they have, you know, a young man who's now 36, he came into the program, former gang member. Nobody told him he was loved. Into a program in Illinois, and hug him and tell him they loved him. And he said, "What is it? Oh, come on, from me." He wasn't believing it because he hadn't experienced it, but he really saw the sincerity of it. He says, I learned how to love myself. And he has children. He says every single day now, he tells his children, "I love you," and hear that. So it's just an example of the kind speech. Many people have wrestled with the mindful consumption. There's a lot of, pressure and a lot of unmindfulness about what we buy, spending money on stuff we don't need because it's going to make us feel better. People, I know lots of young people who have amended their habits, their eating habits, by paying attention like this. It takes things don't happen overnight, obviously. They start, and families teach these values or like this quite a bit. But those can reinforce it, and we can build these safe communities, talk values. I love experience with using, for guidance, whatever you call them, frameworks, amendments. One question: is this a useful thing about for you in your work? Like, I'm not sure where each of you is in your professional work, but is there ways you can integrate some of the things I was talking about into your work?
Yeah, absolutely. And one question we got, John, just over Q&A was if you have any tips to bring these ideas to faculty who may be reluctant to use these holistic ideas.
These what ideas?
The holistic ideas.
Well, every faculty has a set of behavior guidelines, expectations, personnel policies, right? So if faculties are, faculty are treated with respect. If faculty know that they are building a community for themselves, you spend a third of your work life at your job, sleeping, and the other third doing the rest of your life. So this is a huge part. Our place of work and our family is a huge piece of our life. So a lot of attention can go to creating the kind of community we be. That takes some dialogue, some vision. What would it be like if? What if lived? What if we emphasize kind speech among ourselves? Well, at Youth Build, for instance, we see of not interrupting each other in meetings. That changed how people were able to listen to each other and ratchet back some of the urgency. We established a culture of appreciating each other. Publicly, for the person across the table, oftentimes informal, not publicly, but just something that into the culture. It takes leadership. It takes some, with how do we want to treat each other as a standard, as a faculty. Not in work. Certainly, if staff feel where they show up for work, they can bring their best selves. They can they that bell of mindfulness, so to speak, and really beautifully. That's an incentive for doing the work and to create the kind of community we want. If we job, then but most of us got into education because we care a lot. We want to share our love of learning with you. We want to share it with our colleagues. We want to build and do the healing and college citizens for the students we work with. So motivation of our aspirations is there underneath whatever drudgery, judgment because of the bureaucracy, and that you work in a hard system these days. So it takes a lot to counteract that, and building a community is no for building a healthy, wonderful, supportive community. I'm not fooling myself.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Mark, for the question. We have one question from Sadie Zook, who's going to hop in.
Insightful presentation. I had a quick question. I work here on Reimagine Learning, and I was wondering, you mentioned briefly some of the challenges with mindful consumption and teaching that, but I was just curious if you could speak to some challenges you faced teaching these mindsets with youth, and what other areas in particular are hard, and how do you sort of help navigate these obstacles?
Well, consuming is such a rich territory, isn't it? I mean, with the school lunches, some schools have enough resources to try to give healthy. But the way we eat, the way we gulp it down, the short amount of time they're given for lunch, it's a set for unmindful eating, even that. So having times in the classroom where, for instance, there's some of you may have participated in the 10 exercise or the raisin exercise. You just ask them to take a one raisin, close their eyes, and lead to look at, feel it, smell, just taste it with your tongue, put it between your teeth, take one bite and stop. What you feel? Take inside your mouth, take a bite in the molars. What do you see? The going across your tongue, slowly, very slowly. You lead them through kind of a guided thing. Slowly, can you feel it go down the gullet? Can you feel it, enter the stomach? Now, what is your teeth doing? Teeth are clean, going over the mouth, and so down. The act of eating even a single raisin. Then you say, now, what did you experience? They had a different experience. Some goes, I eat raisins. Why'd you have to pick a raisin? Then some else will say, wow, I tasted a raisin before. I usually put them in by the mouthful, about a handful, but I never really tasted a raisin. People say, if I ate like this, I wouldn't even wait like I do, because I would be mindful of what I put it on my plate. Take potato chip. Everybody take potato chip. Let it dissolve. What do you feel? Can you feel that the coating the top of your mouth to your system? We call it cholesterol and fat in your face. This is what. So when we're eating like this, and slowing it down, just paying attention to things just on the eating level. Just build awareness. Exercise called "What Countries Are in My Closet?" I'm home, and look up, go in through their drawer, their closet, and look at the labels where it was made, names of the countries back, and then do lots of stuff with that. You see, clothing comes from all over the world. Geography lesson from it, to a lesson on the environmental impact of bringing clothes from all over the country to JCPenney's or Marshall's. You talk about the child labor involved in making those things that you wear, that kind of thing. The education. So you get into the no stealing and issues of oppression. In the act of looking at what we've consumed, what we've bought. You see, and it's this looking deeply at the intimacy of our own experience, our own behavior, that really begins young people to think more carefully about what they're doing instead of Leslie. An opportunity. So examples like that. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Sean. If anybody else has a question, we have a few more minutes left. So you can either raise your hand or put a question in the Q&A. And we'll wrap up in just a few.
Did you like Chinese proverb song? I think it's so beautifully mixed together the different levels of what we do in our own practice, the harmony, peacefulness, the light in the soul, as they put it, use your own words. That's our home. It affects our nation. It affects the world. And the schools and educational institutions are right in that continuum. So beautifully simple.
And John, have you used music a lot just in the classroom for bringing to life these different elements?
I haven't been yet, but not just for that. I mean, it's still healthy relationships on sexual responsibility, examples of what isn't very good, and speech, what isn't responsible sex, generous with stealing. So yeah, lots of in the culture. I mean, you don't have to look very far for the material to examine behavior around these 5 areas. They're just with us all the time. The classes, schools are such a great place to do it.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I haven't seen any other questions come through, so I think we can wrap up the session today. We're almost at time, but thank you so much, John, for this fantastic session and bringing us into how both you think about your practice in these different areas and how you help to translate that for the youth that you've worked with over the years. Very powerful, and I'm sure that everybody will come back and reflect on the session and bring it into their own work. So we really appreciate
it. I thank everybody for tuning in and thinking about these issues. Thank you for your own practice.
Absolutely. Yes, thank you, Jen. Thank you for everybody for joining. And we host the Voice from the Field sessions every second Tuesday of the month from 3 to 4 p.m. So we hope that you join us for an upcoming session. Thank you much and have a great rest of your day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.